Hey everybody, welcome to this discussion about how to perform routine maintenance on your Jack Wolf slip joint knife. So the first thing we need to understand here is that it is not necessary to unscrew this knife to maintain it. And I highly advise you and strongly recommend that you do not unscrew this knife under any circumstance. I'm going to record another video about the reasons why. So if you're curious about that further, please tune into that one. So let's talk about how to maintain this. Let's start with what you're going to need. So really the most important thing for maintaining this knife is lubricant for the surfaces that create friction during operation. And honestly, any kind of lubricant you already have that's designed for metal surfaces would be just fine. I've got a couple options here. This is not the only stuff that works, but it's stuff I've had good luck with. Nano Oil Weight 10. What I like about this tremendously is the needle-like applicator. We also have KPL, which stands for Knife Pivot Lube. This is their ultralight formula, so it's thin and also has a needle-like applicator. But if you're more of a grease guy, you can use grease, wheel bearing grease, any of the greases you might own for firearms. Here's an excellent grease called Slick 'em All from OCD for EDC. So, and then last but not least, if you want something food safe, mineral oil works great. So understand that just about any lubricant will work. If you over lubricate the knife, just have some kind of towel handy to clean that up. Your knife is sold to you with a high quality microfiber towel, so this would work great. And if we are in a position where we have a lot of dirt and debris in the knife, let's say you use this to skin an animal and there's blood and fur and whatever else in here, that may require a deeper cleaning. So let's just start there. Now, if you need to clean this knife, warm running water and some Dawn are your best friend. So don't be afraid to run this knife under some warm water, get it a little soapy, and get a toothbrush and just scrub it down, get all that gunk out of there. What's important is to make sure that it's dry after you wash it out. So maybe a more absorbent terry cloth like this. I got this at an auto parts store. It came in like a 10-pack. For relatively cheap. These are great. So yeah, wash it down real good if necessary, dry it off. If you have an air compressor, pull that thing out, or if you don't, a can of compressed air used to clean your keyboard works just fine. And those are great to blow out any of the water that may be hiding in the nooks and crannies of the knife. So what you really want to do if you did wash it down is make sure that it's dry. Give it some time to dry out. Give it a couple hits with the canned air. Give it a couple passes over with the towel. Get it nice and dry. So now you're at the step where you're going to lubricate, whether you had to wash it or not. So the most important thing to understand here is that debris and dryness are two things you're wanting to avoid in the pivot area. The pivot area is here. So what's happening here is that passing through the blade is a post that we refer to as a pivot. And the blade is pivoting on the pivot, obviously. In between this part of the blade, which is called the tang, and this part of the knife, which is called the bolsters, are bronze washers. So they're like discs, very thin bronze discs that sit in between this layer of titanium and this tang. And so there's two of them, one in between here and one in between here. And if you catch your knife in the right light, you can see them. So we just want to make sure that there is some lubricant in that area. The other area of friction in this knife is the interaction point between the corners of the tang, which are, let me get this in the camera, this corner here, this corner here. So this corner and then down in there, that other corner, are interacting with the spring. And as you can see, as you rotate the knife, it is driving the spring outward. And then as you kind of round the corner, so to speak, the spring drives the knife shut. Works the same in reverse. So we have a point of friction where the corner of the tang, which is right there, is interacting with the back of the spring down inside there. So real simple, we just need to oil this thing at the corners of the tang and in the area where the tang corners meet the spring. And also we want to get some lubricant in that pivot area. And fortunately, if we lubricate the corners of the tang well enough and work the knife back and forth, it'll move some oil into the area of the pivot. So let's begin. So we'll take our oil. In this case, I'll use this. And if you don't have a needle-like applicator, you can use saturated Q-tip or something of that nature, like that. But what I'll do here is I'll get some oil on that corner. Hopefully you can see that. And then I'm gonna work that halfway. If you're nervous about operating this with a cutting edge exposed, get some blue painter's tape and put 2 layers of tape over this cutting edge so you don't cut yourself. In fact, I just recommend everybody do that. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna get some oil on this back corner here. So I've got, here's the halfway point. I'm gonna rotate that. You can put a little oil in there now, like that. I like to open this up at about a 45-degree angle so it's driving the spring out, and then get some on that corner like I did before. Get some down in there. And just a little drop here and there will do. You do not need to squeeze this thing and gush oil in there because it's just gonna come out all over the sides if you do that. So now that we've oiled those corners and we've oiled inside the spring area, you just need to work the knife back and forth a little bit, like this, and that'll do it. Now you'll get some excess oil that comes out here along the spine. That's one way you know it's kind of working its way in between the spring and the titanium where those washers are. Just grab yourself a towel, wipe that off. Work it back and forth, grab yourself a towel, wipe it off. A word about this micarta and this oil. And you get oil on the micarta, and you can see I did a little bit there. It will darken this. So if you want to change the look of this, like it comes kind of rough and dry, but if you want it to look darker and richer, you can just put a little oil on your fingertip and rub it in and really change the way this looks. And if you're unhappy with that at some point, get yourself some rubbing alcohol. I'm a big fan of these BD swabs, and just give it a good rub down and you can take that oil off. These work really good for cleaning the blade too if you get it all funky. So that's just a note there. And I think that's about it. So if you guys have any questions about how to maintain this knife, feel free to reach out to me at any time. Support at Jack Wolf Knives. And I appreciate you coming by. Thank you.